Today we're taking a look at the newly released Battleforged Army Builder for the Warhammer 40K app. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40K channel, where today Games Workshop have announced the release of this new Battleforge, a feature that we were told about when the app came out, though it has been quietly in development behind the scenes for the last few months. They broke the news on a Warhammer community post, which I'll link down in the video description, and now I've had a few hours to mess around with it and get used to the format. I'd say it feels quite nice to use, and you can make workable armies out of it, though there is a fair bit missing and a fair few bugs to fix. So just to start with, the Battleforge is the army building app for Warhammer 40k, most likely aiming to draw people in from Battlescribe and get more people to subscribe to their app. In addition to the rules in digital form, you get to build armies with them now. Having said that, while the app is in beta form, they are giving us a month of free subscription. I think basically giving everyone access to it for free so they can get some good feedback and hopefully make some improvements. Honestly, when they announced this sort of project, I was fully expecting there to be plenty of bugs with the system. 40k just has a ridiculous amount of rules and complex interactions therein, and this is basically an entirely new product, so personally I wasn't really expecting anything near perfection first time, but I do have hopes that as they iron out all the bugs, it will become more and more usable. They are currently asking for feedback, so if you report any of the many bugs that you find, then you can shoot their team a message via the feedback form in that article. I'd encourage people to do this, as the more people that do that, the better the product will get. So what does the army builder look like, and how does it work then? Much like Battlescribe, you create armies and then you add detachments within them. When you create the army, you can choose whether you're either playing Eternal War or the Grand Tournament format, and you can choose the size of the points that you're playing, whether that's Combat Patrol, Incursion, Strike Force or Onslaught. You then choose one of the super factions, whether that's Imperium, Eldari, Chaos or one of the Xenos races. And then you add detachments within the army, and they come up in a fairly pleasing way, showing you exactly what slots you get, how many of them you must fill, and how many of them you have filled. Each detachment will ask you to select a sub-faction, so for Space Marines you could nominate them as Imperial Fists or even Astral Claws or one of the Forge World ones, though currently things like Successor Chapters aren't available yet. From there you add units within the detachments. You basically click Add a Unit, and you have to either select from the list of all the units available, or you can search them there to all the ones that you can pick. Say if we added an Intercessor squad, this is what would come up. On the left tab you get the option to add more models to the squad, and on the right tab you can swap out their different war gear options. Say you could swap out their bolt rifles for auto bolt rifles, and you could tick one of the boxes to give them a Astartes grenade launcher. For the most part, I will admit that adding units and war gear does seem fairly intuitive, and at least for the few units that I've tested, they do seem to largely allow you to arm them in legal combinations. Even for fairly complex units such as Space Wolf Wolfguard Terminators, where they can take multiple different weapons in each hand, it does appear to allow you the freedom to arm each model as they should be armed. I would say that there are a couple of issues with the war gear selection though. You do have to go through each one individually at the moment, which is a bit of a pain for an Intercessor squad. Either they can all take bolt rifles or all take auto bolt rifles, but you have to go through and arm each individual one with an auto bolt rifle, which is a little bit annoying. Also, for some units that have an absolute ton of options, such as captains, the war gear selection page is just a little bit wordy, so you might need to do a bit of scrolling to get down to the choice that you actually want. It is nice to see all of their abilities there, but maybe some expanding and collapsible menus could have been useful with that. As you're filling out your army, there is quite a handy little box on the bottom left of the screen that you can just about see there. It tells you how many points you have left, which is really quite handy, how many command points you've spent, and if you click on it, then it will highlight any issues with your army, such as illegal unit war gear combinations, detachments that haven't had the minimum requirements filled, and if you've not picked a warlord for your army. This box is how you use warlord traits, relics, and pre-game stratagems as well. You click on it and then select one of your characters to give the options to, and you have to add it through here rather than on the unit's actual entry when you're adding their war gear in. It's quite interesting that it just filters out the actual relics and warlord traits that you can actually take on the models. For example, if I had my only character as a Gravis captain, he could only take some really limited relics, such as the Burning Blade instead of his Power Sword, or Purgataris the Relic Bolt Pistol. Anything that your actual character couldn't take didn't come up in the list of options. I guess there's pros and cons to that. You can't see the entire list, but it does mean that you don't have lots and lots of things that you can't take on the screen. They've taken an interesting solution to dealing with codexes that you don't have in 9th edition. Say for example, I do not have the Deathwatch codex scanned onto the Warhammer app, so when I tried to make a Deathwatch detachment, you get a bit of a limited service. Interestingly, you can build a full Deathwatch army, it has all the points cost here for them, and you can select any of their relics and warlord traits, but it doesn't allow you to see any of the actual rules for the models that you've picked unless you actually have the codex in question. For example, on this Proteus kill team, you can see all the options for the various kill team members, and you can give them different war gear options and things. You can't actually see any of their rules or what those war gear options do. I suppose this is technically better than giving them absolutely no service whatsoever, which is what I might have suspected, and maybe in combination with something like Warpedia you could still use it to build a Deathwatch army. It would be significantly less user-friendly compared with actually buying the codex and adding it to the app. Finally, when you have completed your army, you can export it in a fairly user-friendly form. It basically outputs some text, and you can share it externally through various platforms, or copy it to the clipboard and paste it to somewhere else. I think that the format is fairly useful and very legible. Here's just a quick example that I did with a few units messing around. You can see I've put a captain with a chapter master upgrade, an intercessor squad that I seem to have been able to field in an illegal combination with one auto bolt rifle and the rest with standard bolt rifles, and an assault squad with a sergeant with a power fist. So overall I do think it's a good first effort, but there are quite a lot of bugs and issues with the app at the moment. I think one of the biggest issues compared with the free Battlescribe app is that you can't see full rules for armies that you haven't bought the codex for. I can see why they wouldn't do this. They don't want to limit their own codex sales by publishing all the rules in the app as well. But when they are expecting you to pay a monthly subscription for said app, it is a bit of a turn-off for bothering with the whole thing compared with just going for Battlescribe. If I want to make a Deathwatch army there, then I can do it and see all the rules while I do so. Also, by their own admission, it's not entirely finished yet. It is still very much in beta form, so it will be lacking in some key areas. I think most basic functions of army building would work. It just doesn't have any options for some of the higher end aspects of list building. Space Marine successor chapters and guard custom regiments are one of those. Also, certain datasheet specific abilities such as org custom jobs and exarch abilities haven't been implemented yet. As well as that, with 40k being as complicated as it is and various restrictions on different options, there are likely to just be an absolute ton of niche cases to fix. For me, in the long term, these are a bit less of a big deal. I'm sure they'll be flagged and eliminated one by one. But in the meantime, a couple that I have noticed will be the Mechanicus Locum stratagem, allowing you to get a Holy Order Warlord trait for AdMech, which isn't allowed by their own FAQs, and it seems that I can't add any sort of heavy weapon team to an Imperial Guard infantry squad, despite it clearly being an option for them. Hopefully these sort of bugs will be very easy to fix though, as they just get around to them one by one. As for actual usability of the app, there are a few annoying things, some of which I've already mentioned. It is a bit annoying to have to change individual squad options, such as adding on jump packs individually for each Assault Marine, or auto bolt rifles individually for each Space Marine intercessor. As I said, some of the war gear choices are also quite wordy. It might be useful to have some expand and collapse menus so we can see them all on one screen. At the moment there appears to be no copy and paste tool, so you can't duplicate a unit within a detachment, which would save a lot of time with adding war gear on. And finally, if you do want to delete a detachment, it doesn't actually delete the units within, you have to go through and delete them manually after you've done that. Finally, one slightly helpful bug appears to be that I can see the Blood Angels Warlord traits and all the full rules of them without actually owning the codex. I'm sure that'll be patched out, but if Games Workshop doesn't want to, then I'm absolutely fine with that. So overall, I think that the new Battleforge is perhaps a bit of a diamond in the rough, quite user-friendly and quite satisfying for building lists. But at the moment it certainly has some issues. It's missing certain options that you need for building lists, and there's going to be a ton of bugs and errors to clean up while it's in beta form. Hopefully with a bit more work I could see it being very usable, presuming you of course have the codex for your faction, and are willing to pay the subscription fee to the 40k app each month. This is most certainly quite an early impression of the app, so feel free to let me know any other things that you've found down in the comments below. I'd certainly be interested to hear any other glaring issues or useful features that you've found. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where we'll certainly keep up with the 40k releases as they come out. And finally, if you have been finding my reviews useful, I would just like to mention that the channel is supported by the Auspex Tactics Patreon page. You can find a link down to it in the video description below, and if you are enjoying regularly, then any support with keeping the videos coming is massively appreciated. Channel patrons get to see a video early each week, there's regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and you also get entered into the channel's monthly prize giveaway with a chance to win some big model kits. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.